We thank Hashem that we're able to learn. And discuss about learning. Immediately. Today we're going to start Peiches Amud Beis on the bottom. From Tricha Get Mizeh Umizeh. Remember the story? There was a lady who's married, her husband goes on a trip. He doesn't return. They tell her that he passed away. So she gets remarried. And then turns out he's still alive. He shows up. So she has to get divorced from both of them. So the Gemara tells us, I understand why the first one has to give her a get, because she basically committed adultery and she can't stay married to him. But why does she need a get from the second husband? It's just regular znus. It's not a marriage. She wasn't married to him. She was married to her first husband. This guy's nothing. You don't need a get. Get means that they were married. There's a gzeir. She doesn't really need a get, biblically. She wasn't married to him. But there is a slight concern that the rabbis were concerned of. Maybe people would say that she was actually divorced and remarried. And then she leaves her second husband without a get. She was never divorced. But people may think, how did she end up marrying this fellow? She must have been divorced. People may think that it was a good marriage. Okay. If that's the case, if that's a real concern, then Seifa Diktani, we have later on a Mishnah, Amrullah Meis Bailach ben Iskadsha, Rachakach Ba Baila Muteres Lachsalei. Here, they tell her that her husband passed away. Now, what really happened was he's still alive. But she went and she doesn't get completely married, but she only gets betrothed to another man. She's getting ready to get married. So she does Kedushin. Then the husband shows up, the first husband shows up right at the wedding. For the dramatic. Hey, stop the chuppah. I'm here. So, Muteres Lachsalei. That's a classic Jewish novel, for the kids, with halachas, like a Marcus Lehman type of novel. The chassan shows up, the first husband shows up. So, she's allowed to go back to her first husband. Why? Well, they never consummated that marriage. Well, people may say that she leaves her second husband without a get. Even betrothed requires a get. And she's not getting a get. The Gemara asks, Hasam Nami, name a Girish Zev, a Kiddush Zev, and him say Shalai beget. Comes out, Aishis is gonna end up marrying someone else, and there was no get. If that's a real concern, that maybe people would say that she's divorced and she was really married. The Gemara says, get. She does get a get. Okay, that's an attempt to answer a problem. To make it comparable to the case of our Mishnah, where we said that she requires a get from both husbands. If that's the case, that she requires a get, this is getting very problematic. People are going to say that a woman can get divorced, marry someone else, get divorced again, and go back to the first husband. And that's a prohibition. Now, it turns out that it's not 100% the problem, because she was never married fully to the second person. It was only a kedushin. It's only erison. It wasn't nesuin. Mari answers, don't worry about that, because that's Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur, Damar min nesuin asur min erison muteres. We have an opinion, Rabbi Yossi ben Kippur, that holds that that's not a problem, because she never consummated the second marriage. So therefore she can go back to her first husband. So far, we're holding that she always needs a get from the second husband. Midik tani seifa, but if you look further, it says afapisha nasan lachrin get leipaslam minakuna on top of peites. Even if she does get a get from the second husband, she's still allowed to marry a kohen. Now, here's the thing. A kohen cannot marry a grusha, a divorcee. But let's say the rabbis just required a get because of some doubt of some sort. So that's called a reach get. It's not a real get. But we have a halacha that a kohen not only cannot marry a divorcee, but he can't marry a woman that even had a reach get.
So her first husband was a kohen.
Either the first husband's a kohen, or the husband, we're talking now, the husband passes away and she wants to marry a kohen. She's a widow, wants to marry a kohen. But if she had a reach get anywhere in the story, so that would be a problem. What happens if her first husband is a kohen? So,
Just trying to understand
yeah.
the circumstance here. So let's say she's allowed to go back to her first.
Yeah, let's say her first husband is a kohen.
Her first husband dies.
Right. She can marry a kohen. Or if her first husband's a kohen. We don't say that that's considered a reach get. So 1 second. Midiktani say if afapisha nasan leget leipasam minakuna michlal the leibai get. The bay get am I leipasam minakuna. Why should she not be puzzle? Rashi quotes the Gemara that feel a reach get paisel lakuna. Yeah, it's brought in Shulchan Aruch. Okay, so the Gemara has to give us another answer here. We said basically we created, because of a question, we created that a new law that this woman requires a get. That was our own assumption. Why did we do that? Because we tried to answer a question. So, but we don't need to answer the question that way. We can now say differently. Ela seifa amri kedushitay sava. You know, you want to hear what's really going on over here?
Yeah, I do.
Why does she not? Why is she allowed to go back to her first husband in the second case? Because people would say she can go even without a get. She doesn't need a get from the second husband, because people are going to say that it was just kedushay tois. It was the whole thing was just a mistake in marriage. The first husband's still alive. The whole thing was a mistake. Now the problem with that is then why in our case, in our Mishnah, when she actually gets married to him, do we not say, well, it was a mistake? Kedushay tois. It's the big politics nowadays. At least it was a few years ago. Women that husbands that didn't want to give a get, so they go to a rabbi, and the rabbi says, well, tell me about your husband. They said, well, he's I don't know, what are they? He's narcissistic, and he has this problem and that problem. So you never would have agreed to a marriage if you knew that he had that. So did you know about it before? No, I didn't know. It's kedushay tois. The whole thing is a mistake. You're missing information. I didn't realize. So they annul the marriage from the beginning. So it doesn't require a get. So what are we going to say over here? That I know
Is that really a thing?
yeah, and it becomes like very
that's,
complicated.
Every
Probably an
divorce is
opinion,
a
no?
mistaken marriage. Sense. You know,
What's the
if you do
whole?
all that stuff.
What about the
Well,
whole concept?
yeah,
of
there's two types of mistakes. There's a mistake that I didn't know it was going to lead to this.
Right.
Then there's a mistake that I didn't know that he had that problem.
Oh,
true.
What's the difference? Yeah, well, the difference is, did he have it before? You know,
if he had it before, then it's a mistake, because if you knew it, you wouldn't have married him.
right,
But if he was a normal person and he developed it maybe because he married you,
right.
that's too bad.
What about the whole
There's
con?
some instances in which that's retroactive nullification.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Rabbi,
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm sorry.
oh, the kedushay taos, doesn't that term imply the kedushin and not, not the nesuin?
Oh, really?
I'm just wondering, like,
We're not
First
ready to. Yeah, the kedushin means kedushin, but the Gemara immediately now asks, Reisha Nami Amri Nesui Tayos Haba. So you think you're just answering the second case, the next Mishnah, where it says that she can go back to her first husband and doesn't mention a get. So we say, okay, there's no get. Why? Because Kedushay Tayos, the second marriage was all a mistake. She thought her husband was her first husband passed away. So we say, so go back to our Mishnah. It's exactly the same story. She thought her first husband passed away and she got married. So Nesui Tayos, say the same thing. The Gemara answers, Konsur Rabbanan. No, the rabbis made a knas. They put a fine that she needs to get a get. We're not just lenient about that. It says, well, Seifanami look Nesua. So then why don't we do a knas on the end? This is like
We're
getting
trying to
very
do a
difficult.
Chomer with this.
Well, we're
So-
trying to resolve, and we have two cases, and the halacha is different by both of them. When the case seems to
Right.
be the logic for both cases seems to be the same.
She
So
didn't
the
know.
She didn't know.
Right.
The Gemara answers, safe Reisha of the Isura. Over here, she committed a sin. What was the sin? Well, she had relations with a new husband. So therefore, Konsua, they put a
Without
fine on
knowing.
her,
Did she
thinking
think
that her husband,
passed away, or
thinking
she
that her
just was-
husband passed away.
Oh,
So really, it was a mistake. But
to
we
have
still
proof.
put a little bit of onus on her because
yeah, she's had proof.
she should have examined better.
Searched it.
Right. Seifa, the lay of the Isura, like Konsua Rabbanon, but in the end, where she didn't consummate the marriage, so they don't put the knas, they don't put the fine on her. She can go back to her first husband without a get from the second husband. Okay, that's what we're holding now. Ein la ksuba. We said that she loses the ksuba. She loses the ksuba from the first husband,
It's just lost.
from both of them.
Yeah.
She doesn't get, if they get divorced now, which they are, she doesn't get any money.
Oh.
So my time tkinel rabbanan ksuba, the Gemara explains, what's the whole purpose of a ksuba? Kadesh leite kalabain of leitzia. Shouldn't be easy for her for him to divorce her. You know, he could like flare into anger and say, "Oh, you moved my my cheese. You moved my thing. That's it. Yeah, get out of here." So he says, "Okay." So write a big ksuba. It's $10,000, $20,000. So okay, forget it. Come back. So it keeps the marriage in place for a little bit longer until she does it again.
There's a custom to put your ksuba in your in-laws' house.
Oh.
Yeah. In case something
Yeah,
happens.
you hear that?
No.
There's a custom to keep the ksuba in the in-laws' house. Why would have? Well, what would happen?
Not with the couple.
Why? Maybe one of them gets so angry they tear it up.
Yeah.
So, take Kalabain of Leitzia. Here, they want it to be easy for him to divorce her. So they take away the ksuba because they're not supposed to stay married.
Mhm.
So the whole purpose of the ksuba is gone. They're supposed to get divorced. Well, once we take away the ksuba, then really she should be getting money for the things that he takes from her, which is the fruits from her property. She brought in things to the marriage also. So why doesn't he pay for her? It says, close where the sheets or cloths, one cloths that she brought in. So the Gemara says, Tanai ksuba ksuba dami. What happens here is this is considered Tanai ksuba, and it's like a double knas. First of all, they took away the ksuba.
Right.
Then they take away that even the things that he was supposed to get because of the ksuba, she doesn't get paid for those. So it's like it's a double fine. She loses that as well. Yeah. Tanai ksuba ksuba dami. The conditions that go along with the ksuba, which are these things that she's supposed to give to the husband, she doesn't get paid
Are
for
they
that.
retroactively divorced when you take away the ksuba?
No, the ksuba is really just a
Yeah.
monetary
So would the
document.
beis din just take it away?
She needs a get.
But
Yeah.
that's to help move the process along, I suppose. Right.
Okay. Now the Gemara says,
Why is the onus only on her, not on the second husband?
I mean, he should have to pay.
Yeah, why is she getting all the blame? I guess it is her responsibility, I guess, more than she has more information, I guess.
We had a Gemara before where if there's equal responsibility, she gets the blame because she wants to be married more than he does. And she sort of convinced him. That was a Gemara before. But now, who's the one that's really getting messed up here? It's really her. Because she becomes a Zaina because of this. She can't marry a Kohen, and right? Unless, she can't marry a Kohen. This is very problematic. But she becomes a Zaina. Yeah, she becomes a Zaina that she can't marry a Kohen. So why'd we say? Oh, and that's the get. That if she never consummated this marriage and it would be a real get, she also wouldn't be able to marry a Kohen. Right. Maybe it has to do with that she's the one that would be able to find out more information because she'd be able to tell by signs and different things what did he look like, the person that's claiming that she could ask the questions. Persons that's claiming that he saw that he died.
Yeah.
She would be able to verify that. Okay. Not mizeh. If she takes the ksuba, they take it away from her. So Gemara says that's obvious. Pshita. She wasn't supposed to take it. Maybe she just wasn't supposed to take it, but once she took it, they leave it by her. Well, Kamash Malan, that's not the case. She doesn't deserve it at all. She doesn't get it at all. Okay, Havlad Mamzer. The child that she has is a Mamzer.
Wow.
So what's about to happen now is that in the Mishnah it said that they're both Havlad Mamzer Mizeh Mizeh. Do you have that in your Gemara? Havlad Mamzer Mizeh Mizeh? I don't have that in my Gemara. My Gemara is just quoting Havlad Mamzer. Is that what you are? Yeah.
Yeah, I have it.
You say Mizeh Mizeh?
Equals.
No, that's not the Mizeh Mizeh. What's the next case? Havlad Mamzer. It doesn't say. See in the English, does it add in the child of either one is a Mamzer? Okay. Now. Yeah, in the Mishnah, that's what it said. Yeah, we're about to get into a topic. The Gemara takes a little bit of a roundabout route to take us to a point. To the main point that it's going to want to tell us is that the rabbis have the power to change a Torah law. Now, where are we going to see this? Because we're going to say that this child from the first husband, from then on, is going to be a mamzer.
Even though he was born and he was kosher.
He was born. She goes back to the first husband afterwards. The child's going to be a mamzer. Now, is that really a mamzer? Midiraisa, it's not a mamzer. From the second husband, it's a mamzer. From the first husband, that was her husband. The second husband was just adultery. She goes back to the first husband. Maybe she's not allowed to live with him, but that doesn't create a mamzer. But it creates a mamzer here rabbinically. Now, if it creates a mamzer, the Gemara thinks that, well, this mamzer is now allowed to marry a mamzeres. That means that the rabbis are changing the Torah law. Really, a regular Jewish person is not allowed to marry a mamzeres. And here we're saying that they can, because the rabbis put on a new title. So in order to discuss this, the Gemara goes through a bunch of other things, and then it gets to our main point. So it takes us on a little trip over here through, you'll see, Trumas and Tamai and all types of stuff. Tanan Hassam was taught over there. In Tarmin Menatame Alatar. When it comes to Truma, you can't take Tame produce and give it to the Kohen and say that this is going to be Truma for my other produce. The Kohen can't really do anything with Tame produce. Well, if it's oil, he could burn it. But if it's food, he can't eat it. So you're not allowed to give him Tame produce to rectify, to fix your other produce that's Taham. V'im taram. Well, let's say he did. Well, it depends. B'shoigig, if he didn't realize that it was Tame, so Trumasi Truma, that worked. B'mezid, if he did it on purpose, layasav alayklum, then he did absolutely nothing. That means he gave Truma, Tame Truma, to the Kohen, and it does nothing. My layasav alayklum, what does it mean it does nothing? We have two opinions here. Amar Rav Chisda layasav alayklum kolikar dafilu hi griva hada litivle. I read it griva with a vav, with a vase, as if it's a probably it's griua or something, but it's a name of a. Do they have it with a V? Yeah, it's a griva. They it's a small measurement. So what it means is like this: that it's so not truma. Not only is his produce not fixed, but even the container itself that he gave to the kohen itself is not considered truma. The kohen does not need to keep it pure. It's nothing. Truma is not supposed to be pure. This is not, even this itself is not truma. What's the big deal? Well, we'll see the next opinion. You'll see what the big deal is. Rab Nassim bar Abashi Amar liyasav alayklum. What does it mean that he didn't do anything by giving tami truma to the kohen? L'sakin es shirayim aval truma havi. He didn't fix his produce, but the container itself that he gave is actually truma. Okay. Rav Chisda layamakar Rab Nassim bar Abashi. Rav Chisda doesn't say like that. Di amrit havi truma, because if you say that it's truma, zimnin de pasha v'lei mafresh. Maybe he's not going to take truma again. If this is really truma. What's going to happen here? The Gemara is going to tell us. What is Rav Chisda saying? That because the rabbis are concerned that maybe the owner of the produce is not going to give more truma, if you're going to consider this truma at all. So therefore we say that even the griva itself, this container itself that he gave to the kohen, is not truma. That's the rabbi's concern that someone may be negligent. But really, minatayra, it was truma. So what do? The rabbis say that it's now not truma. How could the rabbis take away something that was truma and make it not truma? That's where we're headed with this.
Something that was deraisa.
Something that was deraisa, the rabbis tell you that it's not. Okay, but first we're not ready for that. First we go through some other things. Well, what's the difference? We have a Mishnah that says kishus v'nim tomorrow. Someone takes truma from kishus, sounds like cucumbers, right? And it turns out that it's bitter. They weren't like squash sometimes has like
What's the word for that? Cucumber?
kishus. Is it what do you have in there?
No, I mean I always thought like cucumber was like molasses foam or something.
Oh no, yeah. In the Gemara, it's like kishuim.
Like yeah, sure.
What do you have there? What is it called? Is it
Serpent melon.
Oh, serpent melon. Uh-huh.
Serpent.
It sounds like some sort of gourd or something. I don't know.
Looks like it's snake.
It looks like a snake. Oh wow. Wow. Armenian cucumber. Is that another name for it? For the serpent melon? Armenian cucumber. Okay. So it turns out, Mara, that it wasn't really the right quality. Avatiach v'nim teseruach, or a watermelon. I assume it's a watermelon. It was really bad. Well, truma v'yachsav yichim. It's truma, but you have to take truma again. That's a kasha on Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda is worried that he may not take truma again if you say that this is truma. Here we're saying that it is truma. You just have to take again. What's the difference? Why over here is what is you have to? It's not. The rabbis said that it's not truma, and here they said that it is truma. The Gemara says shegig amezit karamis. You're asking a question when someone does something b'shegig, and you're comparing it to when someone does it the mezid. Shegig layavadi surah. The shegig. Where was the shegig? By the what was it called? The melon, serpent melon. Serpent melon. He didn't know that it was bad, but mezid he knew that it was tamei kavadi surah. He did something wrong, so that's why we say that it's not truma at all. The Gemara says, "Well, I'm not done with you because there's two cases that we can compare." It says Rami shegig ashegig. Let's ask the question again. Shegig by us, by the tamei, so we have two cases. Takes truma that's tamei for tar. Second case is serpent melon. Turns out that it was bad. So if he took the tamei b'shegig for the tar, we said that it was fine. Trumasi truma. So hacha tani b'shegig trumasi truma. Hasam tani truma v'yachsav yichim. If the serpent melon turns out bad, you said you have to do truma again. We didn't say that by tamei that became tar. It says hasam shegig karav lemezid the boile lemitame. You see, I can't tell if it was tamei and I didn't know. I would have no way of telling that, and I wouldn't be considered negligent for not knowing that it was tamei. Someone showed up later. Oh, that was tamei. Forgot to tell you. But by the food that didn't taste good, you could have cut one open. See what it tastes like. How would you see what it tastes like? You take a drop of truma off each one. See, he's giving truma off a whole pile, but he could have done one taster, take a drop of truma off it, and before he does the truma on everything else, just to taste it. Now they do that with watermelons. You take a little bit of a risk. Usually they. In the store, they have some watermelons cut up. You see if they look good, and then you can buy one that's next to it. If they don't have any ones cut up, you avoid the. How come they're not offering you the taste or something? Or something they have in sections, whatever. So he should have. There was some negligence here. It's not perfectly clean what he's doing. He's just taking a random watermelon. They bang it, they bang it to hear the sound inside. So it says, "V'rami mesid am mesid." Okay, so let's ask the other way. It says, "Hasam ktani b'mesid le'aseh le'klum." Over there it says that he did nothing. At least that's the expression. What does that mean exactly? As a machlekes. And hasam tanan hatayr mishein nakav al nakav truma v'yachsav yichrim. We have another mishnah that says that if someone takes truma from a flower pot, which is only chayiv in truma midirabanan, and it's a flower pot without a hole, and then there's another truma that's chayiv in truma minatayra because there's a hole in the bottom of the pot. That makes a big difference if the pot has a hole in the bottom or not. So he took truma from the one that was chayiv midirabanan for the one that's chayiv midiraisa. So it says it's truma, and the yachsav yichrim, he has to take truma again. 1 second. By the mezid of the tuma, someone gave tamei truma, we said that it's not considered truma at all. It's le'asav le'klum. At least according to Rav Chisda, it means that it's le'asav le'klum entirely, right? So it's a kasha on Rav Chisda. Why is there a difference here? The Gemara says, "Betray money tzayis, bechad mana le'tzayis." Over there were two pots. He's going to see right away that he took from one pot on the other pot. He's going to recognize what he did. he's going to see that what he did was not correct. There were two different pots. Took truma from this one on that one. This one had a hole on the bottom. This one didn't. That makes a different sort of obligation. But over here, it grew all in the same pot.
Whoa.
It just part of it became tummy. He's not gonna want to make a distinction now and take truma again if you're gonna tell him that it's truma. Okay. That's an answer. According to Rab Nosson bar Oishia, that says that really if someone gives tummy truma to the kayan, it becomes truma. The only thing is that you have to go back and fix all the rest of the produce that we don't count that. But it's considered truma, the thing itself. What's the difference from the Mishnah that we just said? It's actually the opposite. If he takes truma from the flower pot that has the hole in it, which is chayav midaraisa, and he takes truma produce and he gives it to the kayan, al she'ein nakav, and he wants to fix the produce from his other pots that don't have a hole in it. Those are all midarabanan. What's the problem there? He's giving even better truma. There's a slight problem because when you separate truma for produce, the food becomes truma. Over here, he wasn't really separating it for produce that's chayiv in truma. So this food should not become truma. It says trumasa truma. The problem is that the kohen is about to eat truma that really is tevel. Because how does something become truma? I have a lot of produce and I separate some of it and I give it to the Kohen. But if I don't have a lot of produce and I just take some produce and give it to the Kohen, then the produce that I actually gave to him is not being separated and is turning into truma. It's just tevel. So really what I need to do now is I have to go to some other pile of food, separate produce on that, and say that it should include also the truma that I've just given to the Kohen. That way that should be fixed. So what happens over here, the rule is it becomes truma. That means the Kohen keeps it, but he can't eat it until truma is taken on this truma itself from another place. What did Rab Nosson bar Oishia hold when he gave tamei truma? What do you do with tamei truma? Well, if it's oil, you can burn it. He goes ahead and he burns it right away. Is he allowed to burn it right away? It's tevel. According to what we just said, if it doesn't fix the produce, so it's considered tevel, and you have to wait till you fix the truma itself. Now, here we're talking about the problem is in the truma, not in the produce. Over here, the produce was only chayav midirabanan in the case of the atzitz nakav, the flower pot without the hole. But the truma has a real problem because that's chayav midiraisa. So you have to take truma on that from another place. And look at what Rab Nosson bar Oishia is saying, that it becomes truma, and that itself is fine to eat right away. The Gemara says, "Shani hacha demidiraisa truma malaisihi k'derabilai." By the tamei, it's actually considered truma malaisa. It's considered good truma. It's only the rabbis that said that he has to take truma again. If it's good truma, so then the Kohen can start to eat it right away. Well, here it's tamei, so you can burn it right away. Damar Rabbi Lai says, how do you know that if someone that takes truma, but he takes from inferior produce on good produce, see, in other words, he gives the Kohen the stuff that he doesn't really want, that he should not carry a sin when he takes the good quality, the fat off from it. If it doesn't work, then why is it considered a sin? He did nothing. He'll have to do it again. So it says, no, it does work. It is truma. And that's why it's a sin, because he didn't do it right. he gave from the Ra Yafa. Here also he gave from the Tameh on the Tar. So what we're saying is that it works. He just has to take Truma again. There's an interesting discussion when we said he has to take Truma again. By us, by the Tameh, he has produce still in his house. He gave the Kohen Tameh Truma. In order for him to eat the rest of his food that he has in his storage house, he has to take Truma again. Okay. What about when you give the Kohen Truma from an Atzitz Nakov, from a flower pot with a hole in it? It's Chayev Midaraisa. And you take that, you give it to him that it should fix Truma from a Atzitz She'ina Nakov, a flower pot without a hole, which is not connected to the ground, which is only Chayev Midarabanan. So it says that he can't eat it until Truma is taken from another place. Who has to take that Truma? The Yisrael that just gave it to the Kohen? Or is it the Kohen that has to take the Truma? The Yisrael's produce is fixed already. He can eat his other food. It's just this itself has a problem. Yeah? That was only Chayev Midarabanan. It gets fixed by this Truma that was given. The problem is this is not really Truma though. So in order to eat this Truma itself, so Rashi says that the Yisrael has to take, but the other Rishonim say that the Kohen is the one that's fixing that Truma. He wants to eat it. He has to take from somewhere else. Okay. Amalei Rabba Rav Chisda. Rabba says to Rav Chisda, Rabba says to Rav Chisda, friend, according to you, that you say that nothing took place here. If he took Truma from a Tameh produce, Antar produce, it's nothing. That even that container itself goes back to being Tevel. Tevel is the word for produce that's not fixed. My timer, what's the reason? Gezerah Dilma Pasha. It's a decree that maybe he's not going to take Truma again. V'lei mafresh, and he's not going to take Truma again. So we say that nothing here is Truma. Is it possible that there's something that's midaraisa, it's considered Truma? And the rabbis, because of a concern that maybe someone is going to be negligent, they can turn it into chulin. Does the Bezdin, masnin makes a condition? How do they say masnin? Can the stipulate? Can the court stipulate and uproot something from the Torah? If this is actually Truma, how does the court change it into not Truma? Amalei vatle tizbara. You don't hold of this. But in our Mishnah it says Havlad mamzer mizeh mizeh, that it's a mamzer from both the child, first husband and second husband. Bishlam misheni mamzer. I understand why it's a mamzer from the second husband, because she was still married to the first husband. She had an affair with the second husband. She thought she was married to him, but she wasn't really married. But why is it a mamzer from the first husband when she goes back? Ishtahi, that's actually his wife. V'Yisrael Malyo, it's actually the child is actually a regular Jew. Because Shirin Lebe Mamzeres. And when you say that he's a mamzer, you're now allowing him to marry a mamzeres. And he's not really a mamzer. It's only rabbinically as a mamzer. It's problematic. How could the rabbis do this? Obviously, the rabbis can. It's Rav Chisda's answer to Rabbah.
Wow.
Amarle, Rabbah says back, Hachi Amar Shmuel, also be mamzeres. This is an even more difficult situation because you can't marry Yisrael because he's rabbinically a mamzer. You can't marry a mamzeres because he's not a mamzer midaraisa. There's no one to marry. A rabbinic mamzer is worse than a real mamzer. That's what comes out.
He can marry a mamzeres derabanan.
Probably.
Yeah. It's like,
Is that clear that he can? Does it say that?
Oh, I didn't see it here. Just Same status as that he has.
Right. Yeah, sometimes we say that they can't marry each other because this one has a doubt and maybe this one's doubt would be answered one way and that one's doubt would be answered the other way. But here it's a halachic shaila. Here it's a status that's not something that's resolvable. That would say, oh, maybe this one is going to, like we said, like maybe a tumtum or what have. We don't know if it's a this or that. This one may turn into this. So they can't marry each other or whatever. But over here, you're right. They probably can marry mamzers derabanan. Okay. V'chenki asaravan am Rabbi Yechanan asa b'mamzeres. But my karle mamzer. So why is he called a mamzer if he can't marry a mamzeres? La'isr bas Yisrael, because he's not allowed to marry another Jew. Wow. Okay, so all of this discussion was in order to be able to tell us that story, that apparently the rabbis are being oiker davar min haTorah. The rabbis are uprooting some. They're allowing him to marry a mamzeres. We come back, we say no, you can't marry a mamzeres. Okay, now according to Rav Chisda, we're still left with an issue because in our case, the rabbis are uprooting something. In the case of the truma, it's really considered truma, and the rabbis are saying that it's not, because there's a concern that maybe he's not going to take truma again. So shalach le Rav Chisda l'Rabba biyad Rav Acha bar Rav Huna. Rav Chisda sends a message in the hands of Rav Acha bar Rav Huna. Goes like this. Ve'in bezdin masnin laka davar min haTorah. Can the bezdin not uproot something that says in the Torah? But Tanya, we have a brayso. When does a person inherit his young wife? If the father passed away, and the girl was married off by her brothers to this man, she can always walk out of that marriage until she reaches maturity. So this miyun, she can do miyun. Miyun means that she leaves the marriage without a get. She rejects the husband, just walks out. It was a rabbinic marriage anyway. At what point is it considered actually his wife that he can inherit her? So Bishama Yemra Mishatamid Bekamasa when she reaches maturity, when she stands up in her height. Bisilaim Mishitkanas Lachupa. Still says when she enters into chuppah. Okay, sounds like the full marriage. Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Mishatibal when they have relations. Okay, next case. That's V'yarsha u'metamala v'chelas beginei truma. She inherits the Yarsha. No, he inherits from her, and he becomes. Is that one sentence? Mishatibol v'yarsha metam. No, Mishatibol. Period. Is that how they have it? It's one sentence.
And he inherits from her, and he becomes impure for her if she dies.
Okay. So is this all the words of Rabbi Eliezer, or is there a period? All of this is Rabbi Eliezer's words.
Right.
Oh, ask me if you have a pencil. If you have a pencil, no, you have a pen. Okay. No, I made a punctuation when I was learning this morning. I messed it up. Okay. So Rabbi Eliezer Aimer Mishatibal v'yarsha metamala v'chelas beginei truma. Rabbi Eliezer says that when how does Beishamai come in here? Okay, we're going to go back to discuss Beishamai. So after they have relations, that's when he becomes the full wife. That's when she becomes the full wife, that he inherits her. He becomes tummy to her. Let's say he's a Kohen, and he's only allowed to become tummy to his 7 close relatives, right? Father, mother, sister, brother, son, daughter, wife. This is his wife. And also, she can eat truma now because if he's a Kohen, she's the wife. The wife is allowed to eat truma. We go back to talk about this. Bishamai says when she reaches maturity, but she didn't. They didn't really get married yet. Ema. So let's answer this. Mishatamid b'kamasav v'tikanas l'chuppah. Means when she reaches maturity, and then they have the chuppah. Okay. And this is what Beisham is telling Beisil. The Kamri, so Mishitkanis l'chuppah, you say that you have to enter into the chuppah. Beisham is saying that the whole chuppah is only going to work if she's mature. Rabbi Lezer says after they have relations, how could that work? Relations. It says, but she's a child. If they have relations after she reaches maturity, that's when it's considered the full wife. Katani Mias. Okay, what are we quoting over here? That Yarsha, that he inherits her if she passed away. Really, her father inherits her. It's only rabbinic that the husband can inherit her. You see, the rabbis can change something that biblically was set. But what it looks like here is that everyone is agreeing that he can only inherit her after the marriage is complete, which means that it's not a rabbinic marriage. No? Are they saying that he can inherit her even while it's a rabbinic marriage?
What's rabbinic if they
Yeah, right,
have relations?
right.
She's not of age.
Got my filling at home. It's filling at home.
This seems a little bit less problematic, right? Because it's just based in change
Right.
people's money around.
Right. Apparently, we're going to need to explain this, that it's still not a biblical marriage. That's how we're going to have to explain this Gemara. It's still not a biblical marriage. And he's able to inherit her and become tummy to her. Wow, this is pretty serious. And the rabbis are all saying that this is working. So the Gemara answers this. Well, that's not a problem because Hefker, Bezdin can take money from one person, put it into another person. That's not a problem. It's when it comes to monetary issues, the Bezdin can decide this. Rabbi Yitzchak says, how do you know that Bezdin can do this? Shnemar. It's a good one. Wow.
Wow, that's a cucumber. Wow, look at that, cut himself.
Yitzi came.
It's like the jackfruit.
Yeah.
Jackfruit, yeah, smallest fruit of it.
Okay. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Minayin shefke Bezdin hefker shnemar kol asher leyavel shleishayim batzas asarim v'azakenim yechem kol rechushay v'hu yivdal me kol agayla. When they came back to the land of Israel with Ezra, they saw that the people in Israel were married to non-Jewish women. Ezra gathers everyone together. He's going to tell them that they have to separate from their non-Jewish wives. He says, whoever doesn't come, all their property is going to be taken away. So how can he do that? Take away property? Yes, Bezdin can do that. Rabbi Lezer says he has another source. Ela Nachle says Shenachlu El Lazar Akayin v'Yeshua ben Nun Rashi Avis Lamates Beis Yisrael Bnei Yisrael v'Chimayni in Rashi Meitzel Avis. Why does it say V'Rashi Ha'Avis Lamates Beis Yisrael? What are they doing there? What are these leaders doing there? Elay Malach Ma Avis Manchilim Bneiim Kol Mashiyirtzu, just like a father gives over his inheritance. Afrasha Manchilim Asam Kol Mashiyirtzu, also the leaders, which means the Bezdin, can give to anyone whatever they decide. So when it comes to money, Hefker, Bezdin, Hefker, so that's not a real question if that the rabbis can do that. However, Umetamala, he becomes Tameh. 1 second. It's only rabbinic. this marriage. If he's a Kohen, how could he become Tameh to his wife? That's only his wife rabbinically. If biblically, he's not allowed to become Tameh. The Gemara answers, Mishum Dahavela Meis Mitzvah, because she has no one to take care of her. And a Meis Mitzvah, if someone's walking on the road and sees a corpse, even if it's a Kohen, he stops to bury to bury the corpse. It's a Meis Mitzvah. The Gemara says, really, his wife is a Meis Mitzvah? And me have a Meis Mitzvah? V'atanya is a Meis Mitzvah, kol shein la koivrin, koire b'achirin aina meisai, ain't a Meis Mitzvah. If he can get help, he can call for help. The Kohen can't just give an excuse whenever he wants, say, oh, it's a Meis Mitzvah. So, but why don't you call someone else to do it? Call someone else, and it's not a Meis Mitzvah. So it's Hachanami given layarti la karya v'layanola. Sort of switches over here to because given the layarti la, since they don't inherit her, so it's as if she has no inheritors except for him. So therefore, he's the only one that's going to take care of her. Then the Gemara says, "Vaychelas b'dinai truma," and she eats truma. How could she eat truma? She's not really married to him. It's only rabbinic, and she's eating truma. She's not a Kohen. Her husband's a Kohen, but the husband's not a real husband until there's a full marriage. This is still the child. My answer is b'truma derabanan. We're not dealing with real truma. We're talking about rabbinic truma. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Just once.
This whole analysis.
Let me take a look.